Not every 90s thriller got its due. Some were too dark for the mainstream, and some just got unlucky. So I dug up 10 that are worth a second look. And if there's one you think should be here, keep the list going in the comments. The Interview is an Australian thriller that has often been described as the Australian Usual Suspects. It follows a man who is arrested and brought in for questioning, but as the interview unfolds, it becomes more and more clear that everyone in the room is playing their own game. One of the main reasons to watch it is Hugo Weaving in one of his less seen roles. He is great here, and his performance never slips. He plays the character in a way that keeps the audience unsure of his real intentions, and watching that character unfold is one of the most interesting parts of the film. The police officers around him are interesting too. At times, you may not be sure where your sympathies should be. That connects to the film's larger questions about truth and responsibility. Who is guilty? And what does guilt actually mean? Closetland came out in 1991. By that point, Alan Rickman had already made a huge impression as Hans Gruber in Die Hard, and that same year, he would become just as memorable as the Sheriff of Nottingham in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. But if you think you have already seen Rickman at his most terrifying, Closetland is worth looking at. In the film, Rickman plays a secret policeman whose job is to interrogate and eventually torture a female children's author. She is accused of hiding anti-government propaganda in her books. The film is set mostly in one room, and it puts the characters through almost every kind of emotional, physical, and spiritual pressure. It was never going to be a family-friendly box office hit, and most people have probably never even heard of it, but Closetland is still worth watching. Hidden Agenda is set during the Troubles in Northern Ireland. The story begins when an American human rights lawyer is murdered after coming into possession of a tape recording with sensitive political material. A British police officer is brought in to investigate, but as he starts making progress, he realizes that the deeper he gets, the more danger he is in. The film was controversial when it was released, which is not surprising given the subject. Some of its direct connection to the IRA conflict may land differently now. But its look at political corruption, police corruption, and the shoot-to-kill policy still feels confrontational. A Pure Formality was written and directed by Giuseppe Tornatore, best known for Cinema Paradiso. It stars Gérard Depardieu and Roman Polanski, and it is one of the more interesting films of the 90s. Depardieu plays On-Off, a famous writer who has become a recluse. After the police find him disoriented on a stormy night, running through the forest with no identification, he is brought in for questioning. Polanski plays the inspector, an admirer of On-Off's work who gradually becomes more suspicious of him. The film is built around dialogue. Line by line, the inspector's admiration starts to mix with suspicion, while On-Off slowly starts to recall the events of the previous hours. With strong editing and good performances from both leads, Tornatore makes the story fill every inch of the police station where it takes place. Homicide is a 1991 neo-noir, written and directed by David Mamet. Joe Mantegna plays Bobby Gold, a tough police detective who is pulled away from a major drug case and assigned to investigate the murder of an elderly Jewish shop owner. Gold is Jewish himself, but he has little connection to that part of his identity and initially treats the case as an unwanted distraction. The investigation begins to suggest that the murder may have been motivated by anti-Semitism. Gold is drawn toward a Jewish group that believes the police cannot protect them, while his partner continues working the drug case he was forced to leave behind. The two investigations gradually compete for his attention, and Gold finds himself divided between his loyalty to the force and a community he has never fully considered his own. The film is pretty bleak, which may be one reason it never became more popular. Its story has the shape of a Greek tragedy, with characters brought down by their own mistakes while still holding the audience's sympathy. Narrow Margin was directed by Peter Hyams and stars Gene Hackman and Anne Archer. Hackman plays Robert Caulfield, an LA Deputy District Attorney and Vietnam veteran. His job is to bring Carol, played by Archer, back to Los Angeles so she can testify against a mob boss. After the men behind the murder she witnessed track them down, Robert and Carol board a train heading through the Canadian Rockies toward Vancouver. But they soon realize that hitmen are on board too, and they spend the next day trying to stay alive. Narrow Margin is built around tight suspense. Hackman's character has the cynicism, cocky humor, and directness you expect from him, but for much of the film he is under constant pressure as the tension keeps building. That alone makes it worth watching. Night Falls on Manhattan is a 1997 police drama directed by Sidney Lumet. Andy Garcia plays Sean Casey, an attorney chosen by the New York District Attorney's Office to prosecute a major drug dealer. During a raid on the dealer's apartment, a shootout breaks out. 3 police officers are killed, and Sean's father is badly wounded. The case could make Sean's career, but the defense soon raises accusations of police corruption, and his father becomes part of the scandal. Lumet kept returning to the world of police and to the damage it could cause, but he always found a new dramatic angle. His films rarely repeat one another, even when they deal with similar institutions. Night Falls on Manhattan is one of his strongest examples of balancing several sides of that world at once. Zero Kelvin follows Henrik Larsson, an aspiring Norwegian poet who leaves his girlfriend behind to spend a year working as a trapper in Greenland. Much of the film centers on a small, isolated trapping station. So much of the tension comes from the characters themselves, but it never becomes dull. There is enough action, humor, and survival drama to keep the story moving. The isolation and growing paranoia make it feel a little like The Thing without the monster. But one of the strongest parts of the film is Stellan Skarsgård, who plays the rough trapper. His behavior is never completely explained, but you can always tell that there is more going on beneath the surface. Mad City stars Dustin Hoffman as Max Brackett, a local TV reporter desperate for a major story. He gets one when he finds himself inside a museum as a hostage situation begins. Sam Bailey, played by John Travolta, is a recently fired security guard holding several people inside, including children on a school trip. Brackett sees a chance to rebuild his career and begins shaping how the public sees Sam. First, he presents him as a working-class victim fighting the system. Later, the same media machine turns him into a villain. Mad City received poor reviews and failed at the box office, which may explain why it is rarely discussed now. But its attack on media manipulation still gives the story its strongest edge. Once again, Gene Hackman is here, this time opposite Hugh Grant in Extreme Measures. Grant plays Guy Luthen, an emergency room doctor who becomes suspicious after a patient dies from a series of unexplained symptoms and the body later disappears. His search for answers leads him to a medical conspiracy. He is framed for drug possession, loses his job, and continues investigating until he discovers illegal experiments being performed on homeless people. The setup is familiar from medical conspiracy thrillers like Coma, but director Michael Apted keeps the chase scenes tense. The strongest part comes near the end, when Grant and Hackman argue over whether medical progress can justify what has been done.